Tonight, strike action. Picket lines go up in Fort St. John. Healthcare rally. Residents of Tumbler Ridge are sounding the alarm. And the Dawson Creek Fire Department prepares for another record-breaking year. Well, good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with public sector workers in British Columbia are now in week 6 of their strike. And tonight, over 300 locations across the province are behind picket lines, including the provincial liquor and cannabis stores in Fort St. John. Now, both locations behind a picket line today in the energetic city. BCGEU members joining more than 22,000 other public service workers taking job action. Union President Paul Finch says every day the government delays, pressures on public services will grow. The union saying it'll continue to step up its job action until the government comes back to the bargaining table with a fair wage offer. Talks broke down last week, not long after they started. Finch saying the new provincial offer had few meaningful changes. The province says it's trying to balance a fair deal with BC's constrained financial situation. The provincial liquor store in Dawson Creek has been behind a picket line for the past week and a half. And a bird's eye view over BC's legislature today showing a lawn transformed by 10,000 members of the BCGEU and their allies. They marched to the Parliament building in Victoria today with a message for the NDP government. And as Brendan Strain explains, it seems other unions are taking notes.
It was a massive show of force. More than 10,000 BCGEU members, including ally unions, marching through downtown Victoria, shutting down traffic to one of the Corps' major arteries as they marched to the front lawn of the BC legislature, coinciding with the start of the fall legislative session. They came with a strong message directed towards the government.
Get back to the table with a fair deal for working people in this province.
A week ago, the BCGEU resumed talks with the province. Hopeful a deal could be reached, although Paul Finch, the union's president, says the offer was out of touch with the rising cost of living.
He told us that the maximum they were willing to go was a 0.5% increase.
Those talks have now once again stalled, taking the strike into its 6th week.
What I'm really focused on is finding an agreement that's fair to these government workers and is also fair to British Columbians.
The union is asking for an 8% increase over the next 2 years. The province says it is countered with a 5% bump over the same time period.
We've brought forward an offer that we feel is reasonable, and we would like to get back to negotiations.
Today, BC's Minister of Finance not budging.
This fight is about fairness. This fight is about dignity. But more than anything, this fight is about solidarity.
Other unions are closely watching what happens with this labor unrest. Many came out today in support of the BCGEU.
This bargaining association is made up of steelworkers, CUPE, HEU, nurses, UFCW.
With the massive show of support shown today, the president of the BCGEU says the union is prepared to escalate its strike action in order to bring the province back to the bargaining table.
We're just going to keep ramping up from here. You've seen the resolve of everyone that came out today. Walk a picket line with our members, with the PE members. You'll see how strong their resolve is. We're going to keep out here until we get a fair deal.
Brendan Strain, CTV News, Victoria.
And as Brendan just mentioned, the fall sitting of the BC legislature has begun. There's a new Green Party leader, also a new independent MLA after Eleanor Sturko was kicked out of the BC Conservative caucus over the summer. The NDP government says it plans to introduce more than a dozen bills this session, with most of them being tabled in the first week. The NDP House leader saying the agenda is focused on standing up for British Columbians as the province faces challenges to the economy in the face of U.S. tariffs.
I think it's an opportunity for the parties to try to reassert themselves with the public. The opposition has to be seen as a government in waiting, really discussing some of the things that are important, particularly on the issues that people care about. You know, we still see housing as the #1 issue facing the province, then the economy and jobs, then healthcare. Those are the things that people care about.
Today, the official opposition opened with concerns for hardships facing small business owners. The Conservatives also took aim at the province over a forestry sector in crisis and a public sector management. Another one of the main issues the government is planning on tackling during the fall session is healthcare. Another rally taking place in Tumbler Ridge this weekend, a month after Northern Health's decision to reduce after-hour ER coverage. South Peace MLA Larry Neufeld was at the rally And he says he's proud to see people of Tumbler Ridge come together and show their strength.
The fear was palpable. I heard the anguish in their voices, and I heard the fear. And it's not okay. It's the people of Tumbler Ridge deserve better.
Rally organizer Chris Norbury says the community member died in an ambulance heading to a healthcare facility outside the city when the Tumbler Ridge ER was closed. Norbury says it's unacceptable to live in a community with no access to an emergency room. Neufeld leaving the rally with a petition with over 1,800 signatures on it. The petition reads, quote, "Your petitioners respectfully request that the Honourable House urge the government to ensure that 24/7 emergency room services are restored and maintained at the Tumbler Ridge Health Centre," unquote. Neufeld adds he expects ER coverage to be reinstated in some manner that would be acceptable to the community. And he adds the main solution currently being considered is the Virtual Emergency Room Rural Assistance Program. That program offers virtual physician coverage to emergency rooms in need of healthcare workers. Well, it's Fire Prevention Week, and the Dawson Creek Fire Department is saying they've been receiving a record number of calls over the past 2 years. Fire officials say the department responded to 783 calls last year. 147 of those were fire-related. They say they expect an increase in calls this year, which would result in yet another record year. The department says fires most commonly start in the kitchen and then bedroom. They're often caused by cooking accidents, heating equipment malfunctions, and electrical issues. Fire Prevention Week goes from October the 5th to the 11th. The Dawson Creek Fire Department is continuing its annual visit to elementary schools across the city, discussing fire safety to students from kindergartens to grade 3. And as winter approaches, the public is being reminded to ensure furnaces are well maintained as well as cleaned. Well, some good news for residents of Fort St. John. The North Peace Leisure Pool reopening today after being closed for a month. The pool has been closed since September 7th, but doors reopening today after the yearly maintenance wrapped up. The city says the shutdowns are needed to extend the facility's life and to minimize unexpected closures. Back in August, the city took the lead from the Peace River Regional District to replace the pool. Construction on a new facility is expected to begin in 2027. Well, to Alberta now, where it's day one of the province-wide strike for 51,000 teachers. Schools are closed and parents left scrambling to find different childcare options.
They don't have that vacation time or, the ability to take more time off work. So for a lot of parents with, special needs and severe special needs, they're not actually, one parent is not able to work right now at all, or having to pay the exorbitant childcare costs.
The teachers and supporters held rallies throughout Alberta this weekend. Teachers are calling for better wages and for government officials to address growing classroom sizes. To Ottawa now, where the federal government is changing when it delivers the budget and how it calculates expenditures. The Liberals say the changes will provide more clarity, but as Judy Trin reports, critics insist it's just a move to downplay the increasing debt.
In a break with long-standing practice, the finance minister says all future budgets will come down in the fall, enabling the government to get transfer payments out earlier in the fiscal year.
It's also going to provide more predictability, I would say, for provinces and territories. I've been talking to them, businesses and organizations that rely on federal funding.
The Liberals are also changing the budget framework to separate day-to-day spending from capital investments. Operational day-to-day costs include health and social transfers and government salaries, while capital investments encompass spending on major projects, housing, clean energy, and infrastructure.
When will the budget be balanced?
At the Finance Committee, the opposition slammed the minister for budget changes that don't add up.
Debt is still debt at the end of the day. It doesn't matter how many columns you try to present in front of Canadians and try to trick them. Are you guys going to be cooking the books?
It's irresponsible for a member of parliament to use language like that. I will say that. It's irresponsible.
The changes come after the interim parliamentary budget officer estimated that Canada's deficit will grow to $68.7 billion this year. Some economists say clearly showing how much the government is spending on capital investment is important.
What are we using debt finance for? Is it for, for capital investment, like, in terms that will be there for decades, or is it for current consumption?
The government says it will balance its operational budget, the day-to-day spending, in 3 years. For more details, the finance minister says we'll have to wait until November 4th when he tables the budget. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is off to Washington once again for another high-stakes meeting with the U.S. president. And while Carney's government trying to temper expectations, there is pressure on the Prime Minister to find some tariff relief for the hard-hit sectors like steel and aluminum. Michael Couture reports.
Canadian officials are cautiously optimistic that tomorrow's meeting could pave the way for some relief on steel tariffs. And politicians from both sides of the border are hoping for the same.
I'll be very blunt. You never know what comes out of a meeting with President Trump.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford is hoping for some tariff relief, but says the U.S. president will say one thing one day and then change course the next. At a gathering of governors and premiers from around the Great Lakes, Pennsylvania's Josh Shapiro said tariffs are hurting the U.S.
We're still seeing prices go way up because the president decided to push the tariff button and drive up costs on the American people. It is dangerous, the rhetoric he's engaged in, and his practices are making things cost more.
U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum remain at 50%, while Trump is increasing levies on other products like softwood lumber and wood furniture. One former special advisor on Canada-U.S. relations for then Prime Minister Justin Trudeau believes Tuesday's meeting could yield some progress.
Either because you hope that you're close to an agreement and you would like to push it over the finish line with a signature moment and a handshake and an opportunity, or to push forward on something that's stalled or slowed.
Expectations are high from opposition leader Pierre Poilievre. In a letter to the Prime Minister, the Conservative leader demanded Carney keep his campaign promise to negotiate a win, including the removal of all tariffs on Canadian goods. A White House spokesperson, Caroline Leavitt, says trade will be one of the many issues discussed between Carney and Trump when they meet in the Oval Office. Michael Couture, CTV News, Ottawa.
The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected a plea from Jeffrey Epstein's former confidant, Ghislaine Maxwell. She had challenged her criminal conviction for recruiting and grooming teenage girls for Epstein. The decision means Maxwell's 20-year criminal sentence remains in place. Her lawyers had argued that her indictment violated a non-prosecution agreement Epstein signed back in 2007 in exchange for a guilty plea to state charges. That agreement also promised not to charge Epstein's, quote, potential co-conspirators, unquote. Maxwell was convicted in 2022 on 3 counts relating to her role in helping Epstein recruit his victims, some of whom were as young as 14 years old. Her legal team says they are disappointed, but says, quote, this fight isn't over. Delegations from Hamas and Israel are in Egypt. They're taking part in indirect peace talks on the eve of October the 7th. Tomorrow will mark 2 years since Hamas' terror attack on Israel and the military operation in Gaza that followed. The talks represent an opportunity to end the war and free the remaining hostages in Gaza. Now, all sides are expected to discuss the 20-point peace plan that's been laid out by Donald Trump. As part of the proposal, Hamas must hand over the administration of Gaza to a Palestinian body, and in return, Israel would withdraw its military and release Palestinian prisoners. Well, the first of multiple 2025 Nobel Prizes were handed out today, and it was medicine, with the award going to 3 scientists, 2 from America, the other from Japan.
The Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institutet has today decided to award the 2025 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine jointly to Mary Branco, Fred Ramsdell, and Shimon Sakaguchi for their discoveries concerning peripheral immune tolerance.
Branco, Ramsdell, and Sakaguchi were all recognized for their work that could lead to new autoimmune disease and cancer treatments. The winners will split a prize of about $1.6 million Canadian and receive a gold medal from the King of Sweden. All right, please do stay tuned. Noah will be right back after the break with weather.